Hi everybody, it's Joe Cioffi on this Monday, FiOS 1 News Long Island, FiOS 1 News New Jersey. Today is Monday, April the 2nd. It feels more like January 92nd because the way the weather has been. And we are waiting, Mr. Rayo, he'll be here shortly. We've got a few things to talk about with him regarding what we just went through this morning. And of course, we are looking ahead at what is going to be a volatile week. Let me just run through a couple of things because I'm really kind of racking my brains out here trying to figure out when was the last time we had something, a period of weather like this. And March of 1996 comes to mind here, March into April of 1996, because we had several sizable snow events in the month of March that year, and then we also had several April snowfalls. They didn't impact every area the same way, but to me that really is probably the best comparison in terms of the volume of the activity here. Parts of Long Island, for example, have seen their fourth snowfall in a little over a month that have produced 6-inch plus snowfalls, which if this were January and February wouldn't be so weird, but the fact that it's March into the first days of April is. And the last time we had 3 6-inch plus snow days in the month of March at Islip was back in 1983. So now we've, Islip did not have 6 inches from this system, had a little less than that, but a lot of Long Island did, and that just adds to the remarkable nature of the weather that we've been in. I'll just give you an example from my perspective. I had 5 inches from the system this morning. That has given me 40 inches of snow since March 1st. That is above the average for an entire winter, which is about 32 inches, because I live in the snow belt there on Long Island, which is in northern Suffolk County. And also the fact that for the season, I am at 75.4 inches, and this is the third snowiest winter that I have experienced there in 32 years. The number one is the winter of 95-96, and the number 2 is the winter of 2002-2003, where I think, if I remember correctly, I had 82 inches, and this one is number 3. Mr. Rayo has joined us, and we've got some folks on board, talking about this weekend. I am really a little perplexed. We were talking about this off camera, so we'll talk about it now on camera. Yeah. But I really, and I've said this, I don't really pay too much attention to what anybody else is doing, but a lot of times the information is thrown at me. And one of the things that struck me was I didn't quite understand the reticentness. Is that a word? Reticentness?
You mean the persistence?
No, I'm trying to say there was almost... I worked at PIX on Saturday, and on Saturday night, from what I was seeing, right, I forecasted between 195 in New Jersey and 84 in New York, in that band in between, that there would be, a good shot for at least several inches, and that there was room for an upside surprise. And I was, that idea was further reinforced by everything that I saw yesterday. Right. I don't quite understand that a lot of folks didn't push that envelope. There were a lot of forecasts going for very little snow on Sunday, and not the Weather Service though. They had their 4 to 6s. They're 4 to 6 everywhere, and that worked out brilliantly, and they did a great job.
Well, I did see one other broadcasting outlet I will not mention.
No names.
No name, but I did see one that said was going for 4 to 6 inches out of this storm. That was the only one that I saw. But if anybody out there woke up this morning and looked out the window and said, we're surprised, I don't understand that, because we've been talking about snow now for this morning for the last few days in one way, shape, or form.
Right.
And it was there.
Well, I'm going to hit the ceiling soon if I see sun angle, ground temperatures, well, you know, the whole list of excuses about why snow doesn't stick this time of year. I think if I see it one more time, I'm gonna lose it.
As we've been saying from the very beginning of winter, you can have snow accumulation amounts regardless of how warm the pavement was the previous day, so long as you have intensity. And we had intensity this morning.
That any of you youngins out there, you young forecasters, and maybe some of you who aren't so young, but who need to remember this, okay? Of all the factors that we have to consider this time of year, and I'm not saying they're not real factors, they are. Sun angle, time of day, ground temperatures, air temperatures, and all the rest of it. Molten lava, if you want to put that into the equation, okay? Snow intensity trumps all of them. If you are confident that you are going to get snowfall rates of at least an inch an hour, you're gonna accumulate snow on all surfaces, no matter what.
Right.
I don't think you would disagree with that.
No, I would not disagree with it one bit. I've seen it on some of the other April snowstorms in my memory, starting with April 6, 1982, 9.6 inches in Central Park, blizzard warnings, snow falling to beat the band at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. Certainly the sun was way up there in the sky, and yet it was sticking left and right everywhere.
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing about it, I will say in favor of the high sun angle is the fact that unless you have something really truly unusual, and in '82, for example, one of the things that really impressed me was the surge of cold air that came in behind that storm. But we don't have cold air behind this storm. I mean, it's chilly, but it's not cold. And sure enough, after the snow was over today, even though I could barely see the sun, it was barely visible behind a thick gray cloud deck. The snow was over. The snow was melting. This was at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
You know, there was no more snow.
Jason Schaefer mentioned the other one I didn't remember, couldn't think of, was urban heat island effect, because they had almost 5.5 inches in New York City measured. So even in New York City, it didn't. Again, the rate of snowfall trumps all of those things, and it was very clear with this particular system that the heaviest snow was going to fall from about 4 a.m. until about 9 a.m. in that 5-hour window.
Right.
And you could certainly make a case that that for the first couple of hours after sunrise, sun angle's not going to be a huge deal. But after about 9 o'clock in the morning, it does become a huge deal. But by then, the bulk of the snow was over anyway.
Correct. And like, for example, where I am, I made my measurement in two places. My measurement in Putnam Valley, which was on the list by the National Weather Service, 5.7 inches. That was made in two places, on the grass and also on the deck, my wooden deck, where snow sticks readily. You talk about a colder surface, boom, the first thing that gets coated is the deck. Meanwhile, my blacktop driveway only had about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of snow. So the grass had like 5-6 inches.
Right.
The blacktop driveway had only about 1 inch and a half.
My street blacktop had almost 3 inches.
Right.
The grass had 5, but it was less. But it still was covered.
It stuck. That yesterday was almost 60 degrees. And so if you were in the camp of saying like, oh, there isn't going to be any snow accumulation, that didn't work because again, we had the intensity, and that, as you just said, it trumped. Now we didn't get 5.5 inches on the driveway, but we still managed to get enough intensity to get the snow to stick.
Right.
Which in itself blows my mind, considering how warm it was the last couple of days.
Timothy Veltman makes a very, very good point. He says, "Can we use the excuse will come May because we may need it this year? If this pattern doesn't break soon, there's 2 people here that are going to retire a lot sooner than you think."
It's getting weird out there. And I looked at the 6 to 10 day
weird
outlook.
And weary.
Yeah, 6 to 10 day outlook from the Climate Prediction Center has us in 70% probability of below normal temperatures, which means, at least translates to me, that whatever we have in terms of a significant or possible substantial storm threat could still manage to be, if not all snow, at least a mixed bag, and I think Friday is a day to watch. This coming Friday.
I think it's possible.
Friday into maybe Saturday.
Right, and models are going to be all over the place with all of this, and that's another takeaway with the young forecasters that are out there. When we're getting inside that, when you're inside that 24-hour period, you really don't need to look at them. You need to look at what's going on. Look at your radar. Look at your satellite. Look at your surface observations, because they will tell you everything. And the models don't really matter at that point. And
remember, I told the story about Storm Field in 1982, where he was trying to explain to his viewers why we were not going to get a significant snowfall. And this is on the 11 o'clock news, Eyewitness News in 1982. And he says, look at the temperature right now. It's 40 degrees. And look at that relative humidity. It's down like 20%. You need moisture. You need cold air. Well, guess what? It was 40 degrees last night at 11 o'clock.
It was.
But the dew point temperature was like 50.
Well, yeah, exactly, Joe. And you know what?
You knew that when it would start precipitating, that evaporational cooling was going to very quickly drop that temperature like a rock, and it certainly did.
One of my air temperature this morning when I got up this morning was 30.
Right.
30. Not 33, not 34, not 32,
Yep.
30. All right, let's go forward, because we have, in this really crazy week that we're going to have because of the volatility that's going on now, we have this next weather system right on the heels of this one. This one is going to track to our west and north and go into the eastern lakes and up the St. Lawrence Valley. So this is going to open up the possibility for some thunderstorms. And we have the Storm Prediction Center. Now, this is for tomorrow. Their risk for severe weather, basically the marginal risk from western Pennsylvania westward, but it's that slight and enhanced risk that's pretty impressive here, running from the western Gulf states up through the Ohio Valley, with an enhanced risk for western Tennessee, the border there for Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri, southern Illinois, right up into central Indiana and southwestern Ohio. Cynthia Gwynn-Yautis, pay attention to this, because this is in your neck of the woods. So we do have, this next weather system. It's going to be very interesting for me to see that with the pattern that we're going to be in, with these shots of cold air coming down, and the natural tendency for the atmosphere to warm up, I'm wondering whether we may be also going into a period where we're going to see some very active severe weather across many states,
right,
to our south. And some of that severe weather risk actually gets in here on Wednesday.
Right. Well, I think the key to Wednesday for us is how much cold air damming is going to try to preclude. Now, the models are saying that we'll be in a sector of warm air. In fact, I remember just a few days ago that some forecasters were suggesting temperatures near 70. That I don't think is going to come to fruition. Now I'm kind of wondering, we've been saying, I advertised today in the Hudson Valley 61, 62 for Wednesday, and I'm beginning to be a little leery about that now, because it's going to be all a function of getting that warm front through. If we don't get that warm front through, that cold front, that sharp cold front, which would be the catalyst for severe weather, will just merely come through with a few showers, a few heavier bursts of rain, and that'll be about it.
I tend to think that for much like the last time, I think for central and south Jersey, I think that for that area and southeastern Pennsylvania,
well, they were at 70.
They got into the 70s,
right,
and they actually had some strong thunderstorms with that in the last case. I think that they stand a very good chance of doing it again this time,
right,
especially from 195 south, and that elevates to me the risk of severe weather for Wednesday afternoon, particularly if the front times itself to come, say, mid-afternoon.
Right.
That leaves an open door for that area. For other areas, it's more tenuous. For Long Island, and it's probably not going to happen, if only because of the fact that the marine layer this time of year is usually too much for the thunderstorms to handle, and they just fall apart.
Right, and like I said, coming off of what we've just come off with the unseasonably chilly air, the snow, and whatever, it is going to be interesting to see where that warm front ultimately ends up. You get one of these loopy fronts where maybe only 100. Yeah, we're only maybe 50 or 75 miles to your west. It's up in the 60s to near 70. Meanwhile, you're stuck with temperatures in the low to mid 40s. and then it kind of like loops around, almost like a coastal front, where that kind of thing.
Well, here's the warm front as it approaches tomorrow. So it looks like we get into some rain. Areas probably on the northern edge of your zone, northward, maybe a little bit of freezing or mixed precip at the start, but we're talking way north of 84 maybe.
Yeah.
And then we'll get some rain out of this, and then the NAM model anyway kind of implies that the warm front does go through. Maybe by Wednesday morning, it's got a pretty decent southwest gradient with ahead of the cold front, and there's the front by 2 o'clock as it approaches western New Jersey. The line of showers and storms anyway as it approaches western New Jersey. I want to show you the RGEM model, Joe, because I happened to look at this today with respect to this, and it actually fires up a fairly strong line of storms here. It's a little slower with the frontal passage by an hour or two, but that kind of makes a big difference. It does fire up some pretty hefty downpours and thunderstorms from just north and east of New York City all the way down into Virginia and into North Carolina.
Well,
so
if that were to verify, or if that looked like it was about to verify, you'd see the folks in Kansas issued one big box.
It's possible. So we're going to keep an eye on this, see how it plays out. And of course, after that, we get the front to go by, and there's colder air behind it, and it looks like we'll get a break for a whole day. On Thursday.
I think the winds, by the way, on Wednesday, the winds could possibly gust past 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether or not...
Gradient's pretty tight.
I'm not sure whether or not they'll have to issue any kind of a wind advisory. But, it's a pretty tight gradient with that frontal passage.
So then it gets colder on Thursday, and we get a break. But you can already see, here comes the next system for Friday. And as you pointed out, now here's an interesting thing. And I want to wait to see what tonight's NAM does. Look where the GFS has, it kind of looks like it has a low there north of Lake Erie, maybe a snaky, weak warm front to the south, and it's got this precip and some snow there on the northern fringe. One of the things I noticed about the NAM run today, now this is 6 hours earlier at 2 in the morning.
Right.
It actually has a wave in southwestern Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden this area of snow blossoms out. I want to see if it follows through with this, because it has, it seems to have this little something running out ahead, a little bit different than what the GFS has.
Right.
And the NAM was very good again with this weekend system. Kind of locked onto it on Friday evening and just did not budge.
Right.
So I'm going to want to pay attention to this, but let's go back to the GFS, because at least late this afternoon, over the weekend, it tried to show something for this coming weekend. Then it kind of pulled it out.
Right.
Now, late this afternoon, the GFS has brought in the idea of maybe another low coming out from the southwest and passing to our south with some snow here on Saturday. Looks like it would be this would be a daytime event, Saturday into Saturday night, if this is correct. But I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on it because of the fact that it was there, it wasn't there, now it's back again. The European has it much more to the south, but then again, we know how wonderful the European has been. It's been horrible. So, and then of course the GFS has another system behind this for early next week. None of this is guaranteed. This is all long-term speculation at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
It's like a conveyor belt. It's like an actual conveyor belt.
Well,
we got into this pattern with the big block at the very beginning of March, and generally speaking, even the longest of patterns don't last much longer than 6 weeks. So that would suggest that something's going to break down out of this whole thing, maybe by the middle of April.
But the blocking pattern actually broke down a while ago.
Correct.
It's the rest of it that's kind of evolved into this mess, I guess, if you want to call it that.
In fact, if it had not broken down when it did, there was a storm, if you remember early last week, that passed well to our south and then blew up out of the ocean. That could very easily have been nor'easter number 5.
Well, one of the things that changes with the upper pattern here, you do have a blocky signature across the polar region, okay? Right. And that's got the whole jet displaced to the south. You've got this big vortex sitting in Hudson Bay. it tries to move east. It really can't. So it stretches out and then it rotates. So you can see the rotation as another arm kind of swings by here. This is for Wednesday, and then yet another one comes through for Saturday. It's hard to find, but it is there. And then it swings around, and yet another one is behind that for next week. It doesn't. We need all of Canada to just kind of rearrange itself, and that doesn't look to be happening anytime soon.
No. It's the only other. There've been very few and far between Aprils where we've seen such a persistent type of pattern like this. And then again, there were I mentioned on one of my newscasts tonight, for the Hudson Valley at least, this is probably the heaviest fall of snow in early April going back to 1997. Those of you who live in the Hudson Valley, especially northern Westchester, Putnam Orange, remember well April Fool's Day 1997, where some places incredibly picked up 18 inches of snow, heavy wet snow, and brings back memories of what we all went through just a few weeks ago with the power lines coming down and people without power for very long intervals of time. And I must tell you that unlike now, where it seems like a lot of people have gone out of their way to get a generator, nobody had generators back in the late 90s. That was just a new-fangled thing. So can you imagine having to deal with this night after night after night of no power and near freezing temperatures?
Brandon Humphreys, you're in Maryland. You are going to be in that marginal risk for severe weather on Wednesday. I don't know yet how specifically it'll play, but I would think that you're probably going to have some thunderstorm activity there Wednesday afternoon. So you might want to keep abreast of that. Everyone's a few people are also wondering about what happened this morning. They didn't have winter storm warnings up. 4 to 6 inches is sort of borderline criteria. Does it really, would it have mattered that much if it had been up? I don't know.
Quite frankly, I don't even understand. I heard back on Saturday that there was a winter weather advisory going up for the possibility of 1 to 3 inches of snow. I always thought a winter weather advisory was 2 to 4 and a warning was 4 to 6.
Well, when they put the advisory up Sunday morning for Monday, they put the advisory up. They were forecasting 4 to 6 for everybody.
Really, then you know what was happening? I was listening to a radio station that announced that there was a winter weather advisory, but their forecaster was only going for 1 to 3. So
right, and you know what? That
only confuses the issue all the more.
There was one of the things that I do because of the fact that there's so much out there. And everybody, look, a lot of people forecast shop. Oh, McGee Hickey is on. I am so thrilled. Hi, McGee. I ran into McGee on Saturday. We don't see each other very often, but I did see her on Saturday. She was on her way out to a story. Hi. Hope everything is well.
I'm getting very impressed. All these famous people that are tuning into this.
We are watched coast to coast, from one hemisphere to the other, across the equator, from pole to pole.
Amazing. Amazing.
It's cool too. It's very cool.
Yeah,
when that happens.
It is.
Yes, Jimmy Zindel, make it stop. I know we want it to stop. I've been screaming, make it stop for you know how long now.
Which is incredible because this man I knew 40 years ago was probably one of the biggest and most enthusiastic people for snow. And you were right. You're absolutely right. Why couldn't this happen when we were in our late teens and early 20s, when we dreamt about having big storms like this, snowstorms like this, on into April? And now, after all of these years, we just don't want to deal with this anymore.
No, and it didn't hurt our backs either.
Yeah, well.
We're just running through some of the comments. Jimmy Zindel wants to feel the thunder. Oh, boy.
I actually thought we would get a shot at maybe a little thunder this morning because it looked so intense. It was a fast-moving, hard-hitting system this morning, and the Omega field, while not of the equivalent of what we had a few weeks ago when we had, I've already lost count now of which nor'easter it was, but we did have that one nor'easter with snow and thunder and lightning and everything else. And I said last night and this morning, I said, this could possibly set off a few, peals of thunder. New York, Long Island, coastal New Jersey, but apparently it didn't.
Cynthia Guignatis, you're in Indiana. Yes, all severe weather types are possible for you tomorrow, I think. So, definitely pay attention. She mentioned that they tested the sirens there in Bloomington. She's in Indiana, by the way, just to be clear. Let's see.
Bethel, can I get the middle of April? Well, no, 1982 was April 6th, not the middle of April, but and the snow was gone in 2 days. I used to live up.
Right.
Actually, I don't know if it was gone in 2 days, because again, that storm in '82. Two things I remember. Number one, the fact that we had blizzard warnings posted on April the 6th. But number two, in the couple of days after it was cold and windy, and that snow was maintained. I think that was a Tuesday storm. I don't think the Yankees finally played their first game at Yankee Stadium until the following weekend. That's how long it took to get rid of all that snow, and the fact it was so cold.
David Schwartz, please tell me when we are done with the snow. Let me just say this, okay? Maybe today was the last one. Maybe it was. I know. We can only hope. Or maybe it wasn't. I honestly, I think we're probably not going to know until it, except in hindsight. At some point in the next 2 weeks, the probability of accumulating snow diminishes to almost zero. So I would just say, given the pattern that we've been in, and given the fact that one of the things I've always stood by is let the trend be your friend. And if it in years where it snows a lot, it finds a way. Even in instances where you think it's not going to happen, like some people thought for last night and this morning, it finds a way to happen. So I would just say that the window of opportunity probably remains open for another week or two, and then after we get to about April 20th, I would guess that it would. There's an odd spot here and there, and that's it.
I seem to remember, like, the final week of April up in Boston, they had some massive snowstorm, which was incredible, like more than a foot of snow that late in the season. And of course, in case you're wondering, the latest that any snow has ever been seen in New York City was the 9th of May in 1977. And with that one event, the one that occurred on 1977, May the 9th, just a stone's throw away to the north and west, up in the Catskills or the Shawn Gum mountain areas, there's a resort known as the Mohonk Mountain House. There's a mountain called Skytop Mountain. They had, with that May storm, like 1 or 1.5 feet of snow in May. That's true. That was a true elevation event. But some of those snowflakes managed to make it all the way down to the coast and were recited or recorded in Central Park in early May of 1977.
That was amazing. I was a senior in high school, getting ready to graduate, and that was just 41 years ago. Good God.
I was at one of my professors at City College, Stan Getzelman. He organized a field trip. We were at Fort Totten. And back in those days, 1977, they actually launched weather balloons from Fort Totten. And they couldn't do it. They did do it eventually. They kept breaking balloons because the wind was so strong that they had to use the heavy-duty neoprene rubber. They had to put like flour or resin on top of the balloon and everything because the balloons kept bursting. And meanwhile, in the midst of all of this, every now and then there was a snowflake flying about. That was that day in May in 1977.
Amazing. All right, so look, why don't we wrap it up at this point? I would just say, in conclusion here, once we get through the middle part of the week, we'll have to see how the systems evolve for the end of the week. We're in a very volatile pattern, so I would expect some model run-to-run volatility over the next few days.
It looks like it's going to be this is the kind of week, like I said back when we were youngins,
yes.
Between the potential for possible severe weather in parts of the tri-state area on Wednesday, and then another possible round of frozen precipitation coming in either Friday or Saturday. It's the kind of weather we dreamed about, Joe, back in the day.
I know, but that was back in the day.
We don't dream about it now. No. They're nightmares. Are you looking at the plumes?
Yeah, but I'm looking at just some rainfall amounts for Tuesday into Wednesday. Just to, it doesn't look anything all that impressive. Iceland about a half an inch total. New York City.
Maybe we'll get one of those long, skinny lines of, little a little convective pop.
Well, I will tell you, by the way, you see that last spot here?
Right.
That's Thursday night into Friday morning, okay, where precip goes up. So, I have to pull up the snow part of this.
Oh, no.
Well, it actually... All right, I have here, this is New York City. It does actually snow, it's very, very early in the game, but this is pretty much a useless tool. But only one model, one of the members gave an inch of snow into Friday morning. None of the other ones even have anything. So the mean is 0.04. But again, that only takes us into Friday morning. So we'll have to see.
We'll work on it.
We'll work on it in the meantime. All right. So I will have all the latest on FiOS 1 News Long Island and FiOS 1 News New Jersey tonight.
And FiOS 1 News Lower Hudson Valley is where you'll find me, and talking about what we have had and what we may possibly will have in the coming days.
Brian Fitzgerald is back tomorrow with Jeff Banson on the morning side, and
Addison Green, is he back?
He's back.
He's
yes.
back, and Miss Brittany Bory will be back in the midday hours.
I haven't seen Addison when did I see Addison last?
It's been a while.
Was it Thursday?
But Brittany was doing.
I forget.
Brittany was doing yeoman's work today. She had all three.
Yes, but everybody's at full staff tomorrow. So unless Mr. Green, I didn't see him on tonight. So maybe he went to bed early. He did do the morning shift this morning, so he might be a little bit extra exhausted.
Yes.
So they'll be on day side, and of course Joe and I will be back tomorrow night with the latest on. Whatever's going to happen for the middle and latter part of the week. I'm so fried.
Get the dartboard ready, right?
Yes. All right, folks, have a great rest of your night. We'll see you tomorrow, and, who knows? Maybe we'll be talking about more snow for the end of the week.
No!
Make it stop!